Hi, good evening. Welcome to Level 39 and welcome to the lovely event on metaverse and what we're going to be finding with Web3 in the future. I'd like to introduce myself. I am Vishal. I head the operations here at Level 39. Nothing technical about me. And I've been here for over 5 years. I started my career back in India, and then I worked in the Middle East for about 4 to 5 years before moving to UK in early 2000. Now, enough about me, and I'm here to give you an introduction on Canary Wharf and what is it that we do at Level 39. So Canary Wharf, as you all know, or if some of you who do not know, is a commercial estate which occupies over 120 acres. I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm reading it from here. We have over 1.5 million square meters of office and retail space. And over the years, we are adding the Wood Wharf, which has just been joined, and has apartments, schools, and universities besides the offices and retail area which have been added. So traditionally, we were actually known as a space where you could simply come into work, which was then added with retail. But now we are completely changing the dynamics of what the estate looks like. And you could even now rent apartments over here. You could even buy an apartment and live over here. The entire concept that we are moving to is a 15-minute city where anything that you need to live a life or on a day-to-day requirements that you have, you would be able to find it on a 15-minute walk within the estate. We have over 120,000 people who are working over here, and we are the largest sustainable developer who have committed to net carbon zero by 2030. And we've been buying 100% renewable electricity since 2012, just to add to some of the credentials that we do. Now, coming to Level 39, what is it we do? Now, Level 39 is a direct subsidiary which is owned and managed by Canary Wharf Group. And this was formed back in 2013 with the sole aim to bring tech companies into Canary Wharf. This aim was to change the dynamics of the space because we only had big financial companies that were based over here, and we wanted to work with startups. And that's where Level 39 started to play an active role, where we started working with young entrepreneurs, startups who were coming in, providing them a platform to help build their businesses and thrive within the community that is here. We do not take any kind of an equity into the business. We do not tie them into any kind of contracts. They come, they occupy the space, and we've built an ecosystem which is very, very collaborative. And what is it that we provide is access to talent, access to market, and access to capital. And within this, we've had success stories like Revolut, we've had Digital Shadows, and we have numerous other companies which are lined up now to be occupying further spaces within the Canary Wharf Group. Members of this space find themselves in the same environment as experienced entrepreneurs, technology investors, and industry experts, which helps accelerate their growth, traction, and access to the market. Now, being a real estate company, we sell space. I mean, our end game, obviously, in everything that we do, what is it that we are trying to do? We are selling space. We want the companies to grow. We want the companies to thrive in the environment that we are providing and to be asking us for more space. It's a dream for us to have a company which would have been a startup with Level 39 to one day have a name on top of their building and coming back to us and saying, well, we'd like to build a building and we'd like to put a name on top of it. That's the dream that we are chasing over here. Now, it's an absolute pleasure, I would say, to see all of you attend this event and to learn about Web3 and metaverse, which I think we all are very, very curious on. I was at an event a few months ago, which I was just referring to, where people were talking about Web 5, and we were all going, when did Web 4 happen? Well, hang on, what world is this? What's happening? So it's really interesting to see that we all are onto the same page because it's a bit of a sanity check for all of us. And on that note, I, on behalf of Canary Wharf Management and Team 39, would like to welcome you all and do hope you enjoy your experience here. I'll hand you over to Lauren, who will be taking it from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Level 39 for having us tonight. I'm very excited to see so many of you here. And also, I know there are a couple of hundred people dialed in online, which is brilliant. Can everybody at the back hear me okay, by the way? A little bit of feedback. So there are two reasons we're here tonight. We're going to hear from 4 incredible women. We're 1 woman down, so we were going to hear from 5. Caroline, unfortunately, her flight back from Lisbon was delayed. I saw her in Lisbon at a conference, NearCon, where she was standing with an umbrella indoors because the conference was flooded. So she was at her stand under her umbrella. So we're going to hear from these brilliant, brilliant women, and we're also celebrating the launch of this year's Rising Women in Crypto Power List from WireX, because nominations are opening today. So my name is Lauren Ingram. I'm your host tonight, and my background is I used to work at Meta when it was called Facebook, and I'm now running something called Women of Web3, where we're connecting women in the next iteration of the internet through a jobs platform, so you can sort of enter crypto, blockchain, etc., learning resources like a weekly podcast and in-person events. And so I was really thrilled to be invited to moderate tonight, because this is all that I care about, is highlighting brilliant women in this space who are going and doing the doing, as we were talking about earlier, is changing that ratio, having some brilliant female leaders in whether it's sort of crypto, blockchain, now NFTs and the metaverse. So I'm really excited for the talks tonight. So the format of tonight is we'll have each of our speakers in a row, a sort of lightning talks format, about 10 minutes each. So I'll give you a little introduction to who's who as and when they come up. Then we're going to get everybody back on stage for a Q&A, and then you're all invited to come next door for drinks and networking. So before that kicks off, I'd like to tell you a bit more about WireX, about the Women in Crypto list and the judges, and also our media partner, The Cryptonomist. So what is Women in Crypto? This is a campaign from WireX to celebrate women's achievements in fintech, crypto, and blockchain. And the campaign was created 2 years ago. So the first time it ran was 2020. So this is actually now the 3rd year that it's happening. And at WireX, I know that they have an above industry average male to female ratio, which is brilliant to see. And last year was the first live event, the previous one being cancelled due to COVID. So had over 100 people here last year, also at level 39, and was live streamed globally, because this is a global awards and global campaign. So the Rising Women in Crypto Power List was aiming to recognise females, women working in this space, celebrate their achievements, really highlight those women that are actually doing brilliant things, because it is sometimes hard to be noticed when you're in the minority in a room. And actually, so I was really pleased to see a really diverse crowd here today. And also, I was personally pleased to see lots of men turning up for an event about spotlighting women. That's a win for me. That's brilliant to see. So in partnership with major crypto publication, The Cryptonomist, WireX is opening nominations today to find the 13 most prominent female leaders in the crypto sphere. There were previously 10 categories. They've expanded that now to an extra 3, which are Social Media Influencer of the Year, for those using the power of social media to influence others, Newcomer of the Year, for someone that's been in crypto for less than 3 years, and Young Ukrainian of the Year, so to any women holding Ukrainian nationality or citizenship and aged 35 or under. As WireX's largest office actually is in Kyiv, and we at WireX, they at WireX are showing their support of following the Russian government's invasion of Ukraine. So since launching this campaign, the Power List has received nearly 600 nominations from more than 50 countries, which is brilliant to see. And entries this year are opening right now until 18th of October. I'm going to have a renowned list of judges who decide the 13 finalists. Those will be announced on the 8th of November. I'm also going to tell you briefly who those judges are, and you have to forgive me for reading my notes on this one. We've got Amelia Tomasicchio. She's the co-founder and editor-in-chief of The Cryptonomist. So they're our media partner this year. We've got Diana Carrasco-Vime, non-executive director of WireX and MD of Merchant Services at Lloyds Banking Group. Ooh, please excuse me. We've got Genevieve Lavey, principal founder and CEO of AgriLedger, George Coxon, director of the Nano Foundation, and Grace Berkery, global lead for Mastercard's StartPath Crypto Track and co-founder of Bell Block, Mastercard's community focused on empowering women and non-binary individuals to use Web3 technology and cryptocurrency. So, sorry, I was planning on being a little bit more slick than this, but my baby is teething and slightly at the end of my tether at home. I mean, I'm also going to be entering this list because I think it's a brilliant initiative, and I'm also like not formally associated with it, so I can enter it, which I'm excited about. So after hearing from all these brilliant women, I'm going to invite you again to start applying. So the men in the room need to be nominating their female colleagues. Women in the room, nominate yourself. It's really important to be backing yourself when it comes to anything like this, and sort of being unafraid to do it, because there's nobody checking that you've that you're doing this. Do you know what I mean? It's coming back to the corruption. No. I think it's really important. Genuinely, it's really important to be nominating as a woman, nominating yourself for any awards like this, because it can feel really embarrassing, or you feel like you're faking it till you make it. But actually, it's everybody is faking it to some extent. So I think it's important to put yourself forward for these things. It's a brilliant opportunity. First off, I'd like to welcome Lavinia to the stage. What I stupidly didn't do, Lavinia, was do your intro first.
That's okay.
We've met before because you've come on my podcast. I know that you're a brilliant lady. You're an established agent for change in the blockchain space. You've been doing this for 3 years now, running your Women in Blockchain talks. You're an entrepreneur at the vanguard of NFT development and a futurist for the emergent metaverse. I've been really impressed with what you're doing with creating your own NFTs as a way of getting women to sort of experiment and actually go and do the doing. And you've won some amazing accolades already at such as the National Diversity Award for Community Organisation and Best Diversity Resource Initiative. And you were one of the rising women in crypto last year, 2021. A Tech Women 100 winner, a 2021 LinkedIn Top Voice in Tech and Innovation, and a CogX winner 2022 of Gender Equality Leader. So quite a long list of incredible achievements. So give it up for Lavinia.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Lauren, for that lovely introduction. And thank you, L39, for hosting this event. And a big thank you to Wirex. It's so important when you're starting your entrepreneurial journey for people to recognize the work that you do. And for people in your community, people in your industry, to recognize the work that you do. Someone actually nominated me last year. And I am looking forward to nominating a number of women this year because that's what you do. You pay it forward. Thank you. So that's what you do. You pay it forward and you take the wins. And as Lauren says, do back yourself. If you don't back yourself, don't expect anyone else to back you, not because you're not good, but why should other people believe in you if you're not willing to believe in yourself? I think it's also important you got to be in it to win it, right? So, and even if you don't want to nominate yourself, then collaborate with someone and say, I'll nominate you if you nominate me, So that's another way of doing it. Okay, with that being said, one of the things that we talk about, or I hear being talked about on so many occasions, is mass adoption. When are we going to hit mass adoption? Of course, I've been in this space for 3 years. Well, more than that, actually. I came into this space officially 2017, the back end of 2017. And I remember December, I bought some crypto. It was Ethereum, some Litecoin, a bit of Bitcoin. And then January came, the beginning of January, end of December, beginning of January, and it doubled. And I was like, what? I've made it. And then guess what happened in January? Crypto winter. So that was January 2018. And I just remember just seeing my account dwindle. But you know what? I was just in it to just see what it was all about. And just the experience of just opening up a Coinbase account, adding funds to it. It was an experience. And it's easier for you to talk to other people about your experience if you've actually walked the talk, so to speak. So right now, we're going through another crypto winter. But even so, over the last number of years, I've seen more people come into this space. I've seen more women come into this space. I've seen people not only come into this space, but using their voice, amplifying their voice, which is so important. As I always like to say, you can't amplify silence, right? So for the individuals coming in here who represent communities, who want to see diversity, you need to talk about it. You need to be part of a community. You need to advocate because, like I said, you can't amplify silence. Anyway, with that being said, mass adoption, what does it mean to you? So I know there may be some people in this room who don't necessarily know what blockchain is. So I always talk to the audience in the sense of, let's start from the beginning and work our way up, so to speak. So blockchain, in my opinion, it's the future of business, the future of work, as well as money. Okay, it's the evolvement of the fourth industrial revolution, and I believe it will help to create opportunities for financial inclusion. It's already done that, it's already shown that, because of course, what did Bitcoin do? Bitcoin showed that we didn't need a financial intermediary, right? This is why blockchain is so disruptive. That's why Bitcoin has been so disruptive, and that is why it's the goddaddy of cryptocurrency. And also social impact. And what does social impact look like? Social impact, of course, we're talking about gender equality. It's talking about climate change. It's talking about anything that impacts the social element in society in a positive way, of course. And so for me, this is why blockchain, and this is why now. And so how does blockchain work? I'm not going to go through the diagram because I've only got 10 minutes to talk. But what I will say, I like to give this analogy of blockchain and its growing ecosystem. So I touched on the term industrial revolution. And if we think about the Industrial Revolution, the first one, it was about rail tracks, right? The railway opened up the UK in regards to industrializing companies, opening up businesses in different places. And if you think about coal as well, moving coal through the train tracks. And so the way I see blockchain and the growing ecosystem is that blockchain is the rail tracks, the train tracks. And then you've got the blockchain platforms and protocols. Those are the actual trains. So instead of thinking Eurostar or Renfe or Southern Rail, we're thinking Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tron, Polkadot, etc., etc. And then inside, and then the trains actually have carriages, right? And inside the carriages are pictures, are gold blocks, and also maybe some musical items. And so the gold blocks, or the gold bricks, they represent cryptocurrency and tokens. And then the images represents NFTs, and the music also represents NFTs. So you have the rail track, the tracks, which is blockchain technology. You have the train, which are the different blockchain platforms. And then after that, you have within the actual train tracks, which is, of course, on the is recorded on that blockchain are the different NFTs, cryptocurrencies, and NFTs, be it music or image or GIFs in whatever format it is. And so I think that's a really good way for people, if they're still wondering, how does it all work? How does it all interact? I think that's a really useful analogy to help create that image of the ecosystem. Okay, so moving on. So I don't really need to go on to introduce myself because Lauren did a great job of doing that. And so you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on all the social media. So please, if you like what I have to say and what I do, then please do follow me on those social medias. So what does mass adoption look like to me? So I asked the question, what does mass adoption look like to you? And obviously, I don't know what your answer is, but I'm going to tell you what my answer is. It looks like diversity and inclusion. It has to be, for me personally, this space has got to be about diversity and inclusion, because if not, we're just going to have more of the same. And there must be a reason why we want to create this dystopian platforms and dystopian spaces, because we want to see something different. We want more equity. So ultimately, I believe mass adoption looks like diversity and inclusion. And for me, diversity and inclusion doesn't just talk, I'm not looking at gender, I'm not just looking at ethnicity, I'm looking at sexual orientation, disability, neurodivergent, language, culture, and age. Why? Because ultimately, when you think about this space, most of the information is anglicized. It's in English, okay? Not everybody speaks English, and not everybody speaks good English. And so what do we need to do to ensure that the space that we are creating and that some of us are leading in and working in is also representative for people who don't look like us, don't sound like us, don't come from the same cultural background as us? Ultimately, where I'm concerned, it is about belonging and ownership, community, right? So many of us here are community leaders. Wirex is creating a community with their winners, okay? There's so many businesses are understanding the power of community. So of course we had Web.1, and that was the information economy. And of course we had emails and those email groups, and that was a form of community. Web.2, and so of course that was a platform economy, and that was looking at more interaction and engagement, and we had all the social medias coming through. And so of course with those social medias, particularly Facebook, and I think on Meta now, formerly known as Facebook, and I think they're really excellent at creating community, right, with the different groups and the ease of use of those groups and communities. And so, again, now we're looking at Web3, and we're looking at DAOs, we're looking at telegrams, we're looking at building communities offline, so to speak. When I say offline, not necessarily in the metaverse or in the social medias, but like independent community platforms. And again, for me, I truly believe that Web.3, of course, is about the ownership economy. But how do we ensure that that ownership economy is being shared, is being communicated and educated to people outside of our normal surroundings? Again, people who don't speak English, or people who don't look like us, or don't come from the same cultural background. So with Women in Blockchain Talks, we are the UK's leading diversity-driven blockchain education and networking ecosystem. And by amplifying underrepresented voices within blockchain, our mission is to give the skills and the confidence to anyone, regardless of age, gender, nationality, or background, to blaze their own personal and professional trail within blockchain, the metaverse, and Web.3. So one of the things that we did, we created a campaign, 50,000 Women into Blockchain, and we are not just looking at one community or one social society. We do a lot of outreach, and that's what has to happen if you want to create more diversity and inclusion. Outreach. That means you step out of your comfort zone, or you step out from your societies, and you look at the ways that you can go out to bring people in. That is how we create mass adoption. Go to where the people are. Speak their language. And when I say speak their language, I'm not just saying the language of a language, but speak their language of where they are at. Some of them are beginners. Some of them are fearful about this space. They don't understand it. It's overwhelming. How can you bring it down so you're not talking down to them, but you're speaking to them, and in a way that they are going to get it and feel inspired to want to learn more? That is how we create mass adoption. One of the things that Women in Blockchain Talks are doing, as an example, we're launching our Women in Blockchain Talks global chapters. So we have London, of course. Well, London was the first one, and then we went online, and now we are launching in Berlin. We're launching in Karachi, which is in Pakistan, Delhi, Warsaw, in Barcelona, and also in Manchester, because sometimes people forget there's another part of England. And we're also going to be launching in Lisbon. The other things that we do, some of our materials that we've created, for example, what has blockchain got to do with me? We translated it into Arabic, into Mandarin, and also into Castellano. Castellano, Spanish, is, I think, the second most spoken language in the world. Again, there is many people who speak English, who are Spanish speakers, and they speak English, but there is a lot of people who just don't understand, and once they receive a piece of material that is in their language, honestly, it opens up doors. It makes them feel like, I can belong to this space as well. And that is a powerful feeling, that feeling of belonging. And then we also have another ebook, What Has NFTs Got to Do With Me, which is also going to be translated. And we're always looking for people within our community who are willing to help us translate our material so that we can create more belonging and create more mass adoption into this space. We also have an NFT project called, Bringing the Metaverse Could Do with a Feminine Touch. And so we hold minting parties. And these are generally quite women-orientated because, again, it's about talking to them where they are at and making it fun. Us women, we like a glass of wine, wine and NFTs, why not, right? But it's not just talking about what is an NFT, this is how you do an NFT. It's actually, let's actually crack on and do it. Okay, and then we are launching, and I haven't seen anyone else do this, Women in Blockchain Talk Summit 2023, because through diversity, innovation is born. It's going to be a 3-day event in Cyprus, because why not? What I like about Cyprus is that it's near the Middle East and Africa, but it's still part of Asia. And so, ultimately, we are about trying to bring as many people, as I said, from different diverse backgrounds into this space and meet them where they are at. So to create mass adoption with diversity, equity, and inclusion in mind, outreach, education, of course, it's always about the education. Create a community where people can feel like they belong, and they feel like they belong because it's giving them safety, a sense of security, a sense of support. Create innovative initiatives and programs, such as the NFT minting party that people can relate to, such as translating information that will be accessible to them, and collaborate. There's so many people in this room. That's what networkers do. We collaborate. There's different communities that focus, for example, on neurodiversion. Some people focus on the LGBTQ community. I focus on women. That's what I focus on. But I still talk about diversity because I can't talk about women and not talk about diversity. It makes no sense to me. But I will collaborate with those leaders who focus on those other areas of diversity so that we can work together to bring more people in. And just to say, Women in Blockchain Talks is open to all genders. So we're women-focused, women-led, but men are welcomed in our community, and of course, non-binaries. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Lavinia. That was fantastic, and I'd like to welcome to the stage Kerry Elsdon. She is the VP of Global Digital Marketing at Mastercard. She's an active leader in driving disability inclusion in Mastercard and beyond, and she has the pleasure of being co-chair for Adaptability Business Resource Group. So give it up for Kerry. Thank you.
Thank you. And with the pleasure. Oh my God. Thank you, Lauren. I wanted to start by sharing a piece of advice that my mum gave me when I was young. And she said to me, Kerry, you'll get further faster if you ask questions, ask for help, and work together. And that always stuck with me and has really sort of helped in my career. But there was one moment in my early career, a time that's now been labelled Web 2, when I forgot that advice and I struggled and I didn't ask for help. There was too much information, there was too much change, there was so much to learn in such a short amount of time that I sort of retreated, I lost my confidence, I lost my voice. When I asked questions, I was worried, are people going to think that I'm not smart enough? Are people going to think that I'm not up for this? And it wasn't until I was pulled out of that funk by a very special man who's still a mentor and a good friend of mine today. And he gave me that confidence and he put me in touch with the right people that wanted to form communities to help figure out what Web 2 was, what does big data really mean, and what could it mean for us as brands and us in different roles. And it was the perfect moment of, okay, I need to remember that advice. I need to remember, ask questions, ask for help, and work together because you'll get there faster. And so it's really important to me that when people come to me with questions and when people come to me, wanting direction, that I make time for it. And we're all so busy that sometimes it's easy to postpone calls or coffee chats where people have reached out. And so I really take that time to give my time to people, because we're all going to do a much better job if we're working together. So the question was, what does the metaverse mean to you? And as Laura mentioned, I'm a marketer. I'm a digital marketer, have been my whole career. And the reason being is I'm very curious, I'm very creative, and I love the human mind. I love consumer behavior. What makes us tick? What inspires us? What are the needs and the motivations that we have? So marry, all of that curiosity with a fascination for technology. I seem to have the perfect job, because technology is, pushing us to innovate for these new consumers' needs, desires, and wants. So the metaverse for me is all about opportunity. And I'm fortunate enough to be in this role, surrounded by a really fantastic team, where we can begin to learn so much about the consumer and watch how consumer behavior is going to change. And what I believe is there's 3 key areas where people's behavior is going to change. And as brands and as marketers, we have that opportunity to connect with people in different ways, in new ways, and in so many ways that none of us have even thought about yet. So it's really about opportunity. So the first shift, I believe, is going to be around the way that we have fun and socialize. So many of us, whether your passion is sport or music or culinary, we love being at events. Most of us like to be surrounded by the atmosphere, surrounded by that personal connection that we get, that shared moment with our friends and family that lives out our passion. And if you can imagine a space in the future where you can attend a concert, you can attend the Australian Open from England and have the same feeling of being there all the way across the other part of the world, how do we recreate, or how do we evoke the same emotions that you get being in person, but in a 3D immersive virtual space? And that's what I believe is going to be one of the big shifts that we're going to see in the future state of the metaverse. So a great opportunity for brands to connect with people through their passions in a completely different way. The second is around the way that we shop and why we shop. If anyone's like me, I absolutely hate shopping. I hate it. I don't like the experience of going into hot shops. I don't like queues. I don't like trying on things that don't fit. It's just not for me. And I even despise online shopping, getting stuff into your house that doesn't fit and then you having to send it back. What's exciting is the way that we shop is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. And technology is really going to advance that seamless experience. And I think it will be a joyful experience to be able to shop for things in a completely different way, one that's immersive and one that's interesting, accurate, and seamless. And the second thing is why we shop. So if anyone has young children, they will constantly be asking you for money to spend on their character, to spend on their avatar. Can I have a new skin? Can I have new accessories? Can I have this? Because they're so interested in how they appear in the virtual space. And this is what we've seen in research through Gen Z as well as the very young audiences, because identity in the digital space is so important. My stepson does not care what clothes I put on his back, but his character in his game, he cares. He cares so much, and his friends care about what his character's wearing more than in the real life. So how we express ourselves is going to be very, very important. And as brands, we have the opportunity to think about that. How do we help people express themselves in the metaverse and in this future state? And the last area that I believe will be a shift is in the way that we learn and the way that we work. So we're here today. There's a lot of us in this room. It's brilliant to all be in person. You know, we've had a lot of side conversations talking about things that, you know, we wouldn't have had the chance to talk about if we were all just on Zoom. So having this ability to connect and network and, you know, to be a bit creative and share ideas on the side is really important for innovation. It's really important for sparking creativity and having that energy. And I believe that the future state of the metaverse will allow us to be able to have this same atmosphere, this same energy, but in a virtual environment. So my team, who are based in New York, you know, I speak to them regularly on Zoom, but everything's scheduled. I would love, and I feel like I'm missing out on all of the little side conversations that they have. So how can the metaverse really sort of bring people together and let them innovate and collaborate in an always-on basis like we used to in the office? One lens that we always use and that's really sort of important to us is one of inclusion. So recently we launched the Pride Plaza in Decentraland. And this was a space that we collaborated with artists, with developers, with designers, with strategists from the LGBTQ+ community. Some of them already in the Web3 space, some of them just artists, graphic designers who we brought into the project. And this is the output of it. There was, you know, places where people could socialize, there was events, there was talks, there was performances from musical artists, there was wearables, there was NFTs. There was so much, you know, there was so much going on to sort of connect the community, bringing in diverse audiences, people that hadn't heard of Decentraland or Web3 or NFTs or wearables into this space. And the second area that we've been focusing on is around women in Web3. So back in June, Mastercard founded the Bell Block. And there was 4 incredible women, Katie, Grace, Julia, and Leilu, who founded the Bell Block, all passionate women in Web3 and in our comms team who just want to be able to give people the confidence, the opportunity to be part of Web3. Because think about how I felt back in the Web2 days. It's extremely overwhelming. You feel like you don't know anything. And the reality is, we're faking it until we're making it, because we have to. We have to be able to have that confidence to know that it's okay to ask a stupid question or know that it's okay to get things wrong. So the Bell Block is all about educating and empowering women and non-binary individuals. And we're super, super proud of it. And the invitation to all of you is, if you want to be part of the Bell Block community, you know, we're hosting events. We love to learn from people. I'm sure there's many of you who have projects in here. We would love to sort of speak with you and help in any way that we can. So if you're interested, then you can email us at thebellblock@mastercard.com, and we would love to connect with you. And remember, we will get further, faster by asking questions. asking for help and working together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kerry, for that. I thought that was fascinating what you were saying about whether the metaverse could create those spaces in a work environment where you have the little sort of side chats of like, if normally you might travel between meetings or just coffee in the kitchen, then maybe the metaverse can perform that. So next we have Seema Khinda Johnson, who is the co-founder and COO at Nuggets, which is a multi-award-winning, self-sovereign, verified digital identity and payment platform, and she's the owner of some brilliant trousers.
Thank you.
Seema sits on the ID 2020 Technical Advisory Committee. She recently won a couple of awards. You're another amazing award winner.
Oh, God, don't.
Both the Deutsche Bank's Female FinTech Competition and the Women in Payments Unicorn Challenge. And she's going to be talking to you about digital identity.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Oh, cheers. Woo! Thank you very much for having me. And look, thank you. Those talks were phenomenal. I mean, I've learned so much. I've been in the blockchain space now since, I think, late 2016. So it's phenomenal, the work that's happening. And, you know, hats off to you on the diversity side, but also it's great to see brands coming in thick and fast to really capitalise on all that work that we've been doing as startups. So I'm really excited about all the important work happening. I think one of the things that we talked about a lot just now is belonging, and the piece that's missing. And even when we were talking about, well, what is the blockchain? And we, you know, that analogy used around train tracks and NFTs and blocks and all of this stuff. The key piece that has been missing from Web 1, Web 2, and now Web 3 is identity. And so I'd love to talk to you about digital identity, not just in the metaverse, but actually as a whole. We're no strangers to any of this. There's a huge, huge trust problem. Trust that supports our everyday lives, whether we're logging in, whether we're paying, whether we're in a community. We don't know who's behind those usernames and passwords. And we're also open to things like, you know, safety issues, fraud, and data breaches. And identity, privacy, trust and safety has become really the number one priority for not just organisations, but individuals. And when you look at what the average cost of a data breach is, I think this is like 4 million in Europe and it's over 8 in the US. This is a huge, huge growing problem. And despite the hundreds of millions spent on cybersecurity, phishing, fraud prevention, phishing attacks are on the rise year on year. So, you know, social engineering is a huge, huge problem. And we'll all know someone, right, on Telegram, Discord, pretending to be someone that they're not. Send me quickly 3 BTC so that I can get out of a tight spot. We also know as well, and I think what's been phenomenal about NFTs has been they've captured the imagination of younger communities, artists. I mean, there's so much phenomenal things happening with NFTs because art, culture, finally, it feels like there could be a road to, you know, mass adoption in the next 10 years because NFTs have captured the imagination of everyone outside of the crypto natives. But unfortunately, 9 out of 10 NFT owners have experienced some form of scam. And it's getting super complicated because when the internet was invented, no one really thought through that identity layer, right? So that's why we've not fixed it up until now. So over the years, organisations have put more and more friction into our customer journey. So when you think about paying something, that annoying thing that comes up with the one-time password, like two-factor authentication, or when you buy something from Instagram, it's like my worst thing. I have to log into PayPal. I have to authenticate in the app. I mean, it's a nightmare. So we know the solutions are just not working, and that's because we've not solved identity. And this is the problem, right? Today, our identity relies on usernames and passwords. And actually, the thing that we need, whether it's Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, Web 5, from our dear friends at Block, is a verified digital identity, but one that isn't tied to a username and password, one that is interoperable. And this is and I don't want to read everything on the slide here, but the issue with usernames and passwords is that you don't actually know who's behind that account. You don't know who's behind that wallet address. You do not know who's behind that email address or phone number. And that's a huge, huge problem and a risk for businesses, but also for children, right? If you think about the metaverse and all these phenomenal things that are happening and they're coming at us thick and fast, if we don't know who's behind those username and passwords, all those avatars, that's a massive, massive risk. So if we keep going as we're going, we're heading for way more transactions because we're just so much more connected than we've ever been before, right? Whether it's, and I hate the ring thing my husband's just currently put on our front door, but it means so much more data that's out there, you know, about us, whether it's your Alexas, whether it's things that you're doing now on Decentraland, or just children playing on Roblox, you know, that's also, you know, a form of metaverse, but we're heading for way more transactions, we're heading for more fraud, and we're heading for more friction. Think about that horrible PayPal experience, and, you know, no offense if you work at PayPal. So what we need is really, it's more important than ever, and hopefully I've made a case for that, it's more important than ever to have this reusable, globally interoperable digital identity that preserves your privacy and security, but also it's something that allows you to prove who you are, enable access, but also acts as a non-custodial cache for your assets. You know, I should be able to, the big promise of Web3 is ownership and control. I should be able to take my assets from one wallet or one account over to somewhere else. This should be totally, I shouldn't be constrained by their technical architecture. And finally, we're in a place where technology can allow us to do that. And it really is a paradigm shift. You know, it's like night and day. Yesterday, organisations owned and controlled all of our data. And that's been great because it's meant that we can have personalised experiences. It means that things can be customised to us. But the issue with that is that we know this way of keeping data in centralised servers is just not working, because you'll hear about the breaches, whether it's Experian, whether it's Facebook, whether it, you know, these are huge, huge organisations. So we absolutely do need this paradigm shift, you know, from centralisation to decentralisation, but one that can work with solutions that are from Web 2. You know, it's no point throwing out everything. We live in the real world as well. So these, you may have heard of something called on and off ramps, and that's exactly that. Solutions, we need solutions that can work with, you know, whether it's the payment rails of Web 2 into Web 3, but using the things in that way. But also solutions that can easily transition from you and I physically to you and I digitally. And so what we need is this verified digital identity, but also delightful user customer experiences. You know, no one's going to use an identity that's a nightmare. I don't know if anyone here has set up a MetaMask wallet or a wallet before, but, you know, if you do that, you realise we're so far away from mass adoption. So these experiences, we need to be able to, you know, they need to be intuitive and they need to have the individual at the heart of those experiences, but also they need to be private by design. The onus shouldn't be on the customer to worry about their privacy and security. That should be built in effortlessly into products and services that they use. And how do we deliver that? Because that all sounds bloody brilliant, right? So if if that's such a good idea, why have we not delivered this before? Well, we've not delivered it before because the technology hasn't existed before. And using, you know, solutions like blockchain as a database, but also self-sovereign identity with things like decentralized identity and W3C verifiable credentials means that finally we can build solutions in this way. So when you think about blockchain, the great thing about blockchain is this immutability, is a transaction layer, which means that it's really tough to be able to break that transaction, but also the authenticity within that. So it means that you just can't lie once you build that transaction in. And the other big thing is using things like cryptography, zero-knowledge proofs means that you can deliver identity solutions without actually providing even someone's name if it's not required, or someone's entire ID. You know, you're not going to, if my son, I'll give you an example rather than talking about the tech, but if my son wants to go into a community and talk to someone on his Oculus, I don't want him to have to scan in his passport, but I do want everyone to know that my son is 14 and is able to be in there, and there isn't going to be someone in there that's 50 years old. And now, finally, with technology like self-sovereign identity and W3C verifiable credentials, it means that you can have these globally interoperable solutions without sharing that underlying PII data. So it really is a decentralized identity that works for everyone, whether it is you're in a Web 2 experience or in a Web 3 experience or even in the metaverse. You should have one identity that allows you to selectively share the bits of your identity that you want to share to carry out a particular transaction. And there's many use cases, right? I mean, we've all heard about, if you're in the Web3 space, you'll have heard about voting on DAOs, which is a nightmare. Well, having a merit-based reputational identity means that those votes can be fair. You can understand who's created that NFT, who's purchasing that NFT, so that real provenance can happen through a decentralized identity. And even things that now, whether, I don't know if you've taken a Deliveroo or an Amazon delivery for, alcohol. I hate the fact that I have to go in and find my driver's license or my passport to do that. Through products and solutions like decentralized identity, it means you can have age verification without providing any of that underlying ID information. So the benefits of decentralized identity, they're massive, they're huge. And if you can deliver solutions like this, it's frictionless, secure customer experiences, privacy and security built in, but also improve compliance. And once you have one identity, think about all the operational efficiencies you could have across your host of products or through your customer experiences. So instead of more transactions, fraud and friction, you can enable more transactions, less fraud, less friction. And that's because data can be independently confirmed, and the need for blind trust is replaced with trustless veracity. And that's it, really. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, looking forward to questions. Thank you.
That was so interesting. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. And a bit of a shocker about the phishing attacks being on the rise like that. I read yesterday about, I don't know if anyone's heard of pig butchering. It's apparently a new technique for phishing for information, which is where people send a message pretending it's from a wrong number. I actually got one like that yesterday. It said like, blah, blah, piano lessons, sort code, account number they provided me. And that's a way of getting you to reply and then engaging and tricking you. It's a wild world. So next we have the brilliant Camilla McFarland, who is the VP and Head of Customer Success for Mojito, which is a revolutionary NFT platform for brands entering Web3. So at Mojito, Camilla partners with major brands to craft and launch their metaverse strategies. So that's anyone from fashion, sports, luxury, gaming, music, entertainment, hospitality, and more. And offering brands new multi-dimensional and dynamic ways to engage with their fans. So she'll be talking about the future of brands and creators in Web3. So give it up for Camilla.
Thank you.
Is this working? Great. Thanks, guys. This is one of the most diverse rooms I've ever seen at a Web3 conference, so thank you all for coming. Before I get into intros in the talk, just to get a sense, so who here works in tech now? Web 2, Web 3? Okay, a lot of people. And who works on the marketing, strategy, brand side? Also, amazing. And how many people have ever transacted on chain before? Okay, nice. Well, happy merge day. And actually, I've also been in the blockchain space since about 2017 when I first started working full-time, and a couple years before that sort of as a user. But I was thinking about when I got into the space, and one of them was I would go to any events I could get my hands on in crypto. I was in New York at the time, and I went to an event finally with who was the CMO of Consensus, which is a company that did a lot of the early brand building for Ethereum and launched MetaMask and a lot of the stuff we use today. And it was the first time I'd seen someone that wasn't technical speaking about the industry that in a role that I felt like I could do, and that sort of changed everything. And so, if you're trying to get into this space, come see me after. There's so many ways to enter because the barriers of participation are essentially zero. And especially for whatever background you come from, the industry is so new. No one has a college degree in it. No one's an expert in it. Everyone comes from brand. I came from the hedge fund world beforehand. A lot come from traditional tech because it's been an industry built by back-end engineers. But even more so as we finally have the application level built out, we need product designers, marketers, brand strategists, even more so than ever before. Marketing roles are the #1 most in demand thing in crypto right now. So to get into a little bit of what we do, at Mojito and who I am. So as I mentioned, I spent most of my career in the hedge fund world at a company called Bridgewater for many years before getting into crypto, and am involved in sort of two companies. I sort of helped start as employee number one and still an advisor to a company called Serotonin. And we work for like go-to-market strategy and full suite brand marketing strategy for companies across Web3. So L1s, NFT stuff, DeFi, you name it, that works with sort of a host of brands across the industry. And the first company from our product studio is called Mojito, where we work with, let's see, there we go, global brands. We've done all of Sotheby's NFT tech and strategy over the last year for all of their foray into digital art. We've worked with Liverpool Football Club to launch their sort of collectible fan membership program. I can get more into it now. But just to back up a little bit of like why we're all here, and some of this will be common knowledge for people, but sort of our thesis at Mojito, and certainly my thesis of why I was so excited to get into the space so many years ago, is this whole idea that Web3 is eating the world. And the same way that there was this thesis in 2011 of like software is eating the world, that you had like tech stocks, that they even lumped like Uber and Amazon and Airbnb into, and then you had everything else. And now we're seeing that that structure is just not applicable. Like Uber is just a tech-enabled transportation company, and Airbnb is just a tech-enabled hospitality company. And so everything, software is in everything now. Banking is basically iBanking in fintech. Like there isn't an industry that hasn't been touched by the internet yet. And it's sort of my thesis that that's what is going to happen with blockchain-based enabled systems, either token economies or using the blockchain ledger in some way. Identity is a massive unlock that we've been flirting with for a long time and haven't solved the crack, like the nut yet. And so to back it up of where I see kind of the biggest gateway drug into that Web3 future, the next opportunity for mass adoption is global brands. So they're already here. There's sort of 200 brands, like the biggest names in every industry you can imagine, that have already dipped a toe in and done an NFT project. Whether a like collectible project, digital art sales, a membership-based token, all of these brands, Adidas is one of the biggest ones that they've done a really popular launch in partnership with G-Money and Punks Comics. Pretty much every fine art gallery, independent gallery, auction house has done it. Media is hugely exploring in many different ways, from fundraising to storytelling. Tech has done it from, the first tweet being sold off as an NFT is sort of a collectible. Gaming, sports, I mentioned Liverpool. We also work with the Milwaukee Bucks. Automotive, there have been some car NFT, like twin pairing projects. They're all exploring it as sort of the next frontier of fan engagement. The list goes on and on. There's sort of everything you can think of, they've probably done an NFT project, including a lot of celebrities like Paris Hilton, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Shawn Mendes, even Melania Trump, Bella Hadid. They're all here. Why? Like why? What is the opportunity? What do they see? The complicated way of saying it is NFTs offer, it's just a vehicle, it's just a tech vehicle, and they offer an omni-channel, non-deplatformable, engaged and paying audience. And so what does that actually mean? It's sort of, some brands see it as a new revenue stream, like a new product launch of a digital product that they bring to market, kind of the equivalent of like the Prada keychain or something. And that's quite like one-dimensional thinking. That might be what they come to market with because they see another opportunity for a revenue stream. And then quite quickly, they realize that it's a completely new way to engage with their loyal fans. So right now, today, all of the massive followers on Instagram and Twitter that some of these brands have, they can't really monetize that outside of like advertisement sales, that they then sell their followership to someone else. And like brands don't love that, their fans don't love that, but there's not a great way to sort of monetize a digital following or a digital community in today's day and age. And so I think we're moving away from that old advertising revenue model to harness value in a way that the fans benefit as well, or the customers benefit as well. And why do they benefit is because you kind of co-own a piece of the brand. Like for the Adidas example, hugely successful project. They sold them, I think, at about $500 equivalent a piece. And now the going rate for them is about $2,000 a piece. And so the buyer of that, the fan, wins. They get utility, access to, I think you can order like a special Adidas sweatshirt just for that group. So you can use it as a redeemable to claim physical merchandise just for that group. And then the speculative value of being part of that limited membership crew goes up in value. And on every transaction that happens, Adidas has 10% revenue on that. So Adidas, I think at this point, has made more income from its secondary trading volume on those things than its initial point of sale. So what a cool new business model for them. And the fans themselves, by participating in that community, have also benefited greatly, both from utility and financially. And you see here, Dolce & Gabbana did they have a membership box where you can get access to in-person shows or exclusive access to new capsule collections. Liverpool did it where it's sort of a collectible fan token, and you get access to a private chat with other superfans and the team that do like live team updates, behind the scenes footage, giveaways, raffles, things like that. And then just quickly why we in the Web3 world are excited about brands coming in, because the soul of crypto, of Web3 in a way, can be quite anti-establishment, I'd say, see the world in a different way. And it's because it's how we get adoption. As these brands with millions of global fans and followers come into the space, it's an amazing onboarding opportunity. And I'd say that, working in crypto in the last couple of years has been like, this is, by the way, the classic, like, new innovative tech adoption curve. Working in crypto has been like on the other side of the chasm in the last 5 years. There hasn't been much to do. People think it's really weird and complicated. And then finally, we've kind of crossed the chasm to the late phase of the early adopters. The projects we're seeing are still very experimental. This is still very experimental tech. And we haven't yet gotten into the early majority. But from our perspective, we're starting to see it. Like, as the market has come down a bit in price and in trading volume, brands are thinking much more long-term and much more strategic about how they want to build their Web3 footprint that's going to be here and that they're going to be proud of in 3 or 5 years to 10 years. Just quickly, as we've seen, awareness is there. I think NFT was like Spotify's year of the word of the year for 2021. But awareness is there. I'd say understanding is not yet proliferated. NFTs reach the zeitgeist, but very few people really understand what it is. They kind of synonymize it with like a 500,000 photo of a monkey, and they think this is so stupid, why does this exist? Not to mention the scams and that everyone spoke about before, and this sort of crypto bro culture that puts a lot of people off. But when you actually look at awareness, understanding, and then all the way down to adoption, it's even less. So just active wallets, active defined by once-a-month transactions that interact with Ethereum-based NFTs, which is really the power of this NFT market, it's anywhere from like 200,000 to 500,000 active wallets a month. And I have about 4 or 5 active wallets, so you can divide that number to get to users by probably 3 or 4. So that's tiny. That is absolutely tiny. But the amount of money that they're spending and sort of the innovative potential that this tech holds is commanding a lot larger audience than you actually have users in the space. And why? Because as many of the other panelists were saying, especially your metaverse comments earlier, transacting in Web3 right now is like going to a really bad house party. Like, you can't find it, there's no waiter, the beer is warm, there's plastic cups. If you tell your friends to get into this space, you have to tell them, like, connect your bank account to Coinbase or Kraken, buy crypto, install a MetaMask plugin, transfer it over there, and then when they transact, they deal with like failed transactions, getting front run, slippage, all this stuff, getting their stuff potentially stolen if they click the wrong link. And so hence the reason why we need product designers and front end and marketers. And so one of the solutions we've built with Mojito for these global brands as we help them enter is offering a sort of semi-custodial wallet solution where they can pay in credit card, they can pay in fiat. They don't need a wallet already. There's a wallet that's set up for them that is sort of controlled by us and them, and then they have the option to take that wallet entirely on-chain to custody it, or transfer the NFT inside it into their own personal wallet. So, as I mentioned, we at Mojito, we create and mint NFTs and fungibles. We accept crypto card or crypto payments, depending on that Web3 native user base that's still very active that you don't want to dismiss, but also the new group coming in. We support semi-custodial or self-hosted, which is sort of either that brand new co-controlled wallet or like your MetaMask. We also have a completely legally and tax compliant platform, depending on the company or the brand and the buyer's needs to do KYC and KYT and all of that. And then we have this sort of no-code capability for any brand, hopefully soon any creator, to be able to come in, mint their NFTs on their own site, like their own page, and their own dedicated secondary commerce place, and a place where you can go and connect your wallet and have a whole host of opportunities in one spot. So to leave you, this is sort of the future we envision. Of right now, a lot of the commerce that happens in this world is done on centralized open platforms like OpenSea and Luxor has really powered this market over the last year and a half. I hope they'll always exist. That is the benefit of composability in this space. They should always exist. But we also see a world where you give the buyer and the user more optionality, where they can go directly to Sotheby's or to Vogue, or there's some crypto native groups here like World of Women and CryptoPunks or Moonbirds. They can go directly to that site and transact on primary or secondary sales there with more trustworthiness, a better experience, applicability to DAOs as well. I'm a member of Pleaser DAO. I think how DAOs are sort of conveying their collections is sort of at its early stages, and we want to see a better world. So that's me. I'm, I think, the last thing keeping you guys from an amazing Q&A. Thank you. That's my Twitter and our company's Twitter, and I guess we'll be around afterwards if anyone wants to chat. Thank you.
I was going to put the clicker. Right. So I was going to find everybody's faces, and so you'll be able to see all of us. I was going to invite all the speakers to come up on stage for a Q&A. If you could join me on stage. I thought that was so interesting from Camilla, and I also think she's brilliant at demystifying big topics and making them much more manageable. She just summarised a huge amount in a short time. So when she comes back, we will crack on anyway. Have we got any questions? Is anybody brave enough to ask straight away? I think we've got a question down the front. Ah.
There's some mics. Oh, they're down there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hello, hello. Is this on?
No, it's all good. I think I've still got this guy on. It's so uncomfortable.
I don't think this is on. Hello, hello.
Testing. 1, 2. Oh, I'm on.
Yeah, you're on.
Hello?
Hello, hello.
Yeah,
Hello?
Go on, Balbir, ask a question.
Okay, fantastic. What support do you need to get your message out there so it's out there right across the population of the Web3 community? What support do you need?
Are you directing that question at who?
Everybody.
Okay, from my perspective, it would be, I think what we're doing, which is great, right? It's through advocacy, it's through making sure that there's money available for innovators to innovate, but also for amplifying their messages. So I think what we're doing is through these sorts of events, what we're doing is highlighting innovators within the space, but also trying to level the playing field. So it means that the right types of voices get amplified. And I think it's that share of voice piece, but it's also those bigger brands that have the budgets actually getting behind the innovators in this space, because otherwise it can be a tough and lonely existence. Just even myself, the way I'm taking that question is, as an Indian founder, as a woman, we only get, not to put a downer on this, but, we only get 2% of the VC funding. And that's really tough, actually, when you then add an emerging technology to that as well, it's even tougher. So I just think events like this and real advocacy, and if anyone's thinking of doing accelerators, these accelerators should come with funding. They should come with support from a PR perspective, but also through mentors and advisors.
Yeah, 100%. And I would add that amplifying your fellow colleagues that are in this space, that crypto is incredibly white, incredibly male, is always going to help. But also treat us like equals. Not that doesn't happen, but there's that amazing RBG quote of if I the amount of times I've been patted on the head for being a woman in crypto or a female founder, my head would be flat. And so it's also just treat them as colleagues.
Yeah.
Or cohorts or co-founders at the same level. And it's great to have it be a female panel. Usually it's what we call manels, where it's only men. And so even if you have to have like a token female speaker, diverse voice up there, I mean, for now, go for it.
Yeah.
These founders need to be amplified even more in the first place. So, yeah.
So to answer that question, I would say, well, I put on events. So I think you said something correct. Big brands supporting innovators like me. So I'm all about collaboration, partnerships, sponsorships. So yeah, sponsorships who can help propel the message that I have, and the communities that I advocate for, of course, and the business that I have, and also, you know, putting on events, share it with your community. I run a thing called Blockchain Business Breakfast. As many people here are in blockchain and business. You know, come to the events, support the events, tell people about it. The event in Cyprus next year, tell people about it, buy tickets. You know, as a corporate company or a company maybe with funding, tell your female staff or your women staff or just your staff full stop about, you know, what Women in Blockchain Talks and other companies are doing. And buy the ticket, support the cause, because change can't really happen without that backing. And I think it goes back to the VC question as well, or statement, I should say. You know, where do we go? Pointing us in the right direction, giving us the right contacts, because sometimes it's just about networking and then getting the right connections as well. So yeah.
Actually, I might briefly add something as well, which is that I'm mic'd up, I'm good, which is the sort of language and jargon point. Just I think there is so much jargon in anything sort of Web3, metaverse, NFTs. Even if you do say, oh, that means non-fungible token, you're still going to get a lot of blank looks, to be honest. So it's about really explaining things in, I was going to say, layperson's terms of, like, you know, sort of plain English, or just breaking things down for people, I think, is actually even more important for sort of bringing more women in, so that they feel like, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, and I think I can sort of belong and be part of this and participate in it. Yeah. Any more questions? Okay.
Christina Yanzhang, it's really fascinating and inspiring to hear so many amazing women who are championing in the Web3 space. And I want to ask a slightly different question. According to the latest report from World Economic Forum, there are still 1/3 of the world population, about 3 billion people, they are still lacking opportunities to go online or even engage purposefully with the digital economy. So there is a huge digital divide in the world where we champion all the very advanced technology, which is all about access to the internet. So I wonder, as champion of Web3, what can we do to help those 1/3 of the world population to also have equal access to these wonderful things for the next 10 years? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a...
I
was just going to... that's a brilliant question, right? So I'm a technical advisory committee on ID 2020, and it's even actually worse that a billion people don't have an identity, and certainly don't have a digital identity of any kind. And I think with actually what we're doing as an industry is around inclusion, right? It is around making sure that that's what was so beautiful actually about even DeFi, was that you could communicate without having that intermediary, without actually, I know the regulators are onto them now, and that's why we're working with some of those DeFi platforms, but identity, but you're absolutely right, that whole internet connection and having access to that, I think that's a collective problem that needs to be shared, not just on the shoulders of Web3 innovators, but actually collectively, and it goes down to even identity is needed, even as a core, if you think about that being, you know, a fundamental human right is to have an identity, and I think all the other things come after that, but that would be my perspective on it.
Yeah, I think identity is a huge unlock. And as Seema said, I think identity today is based on increasingly seemingly arbitrary things, like where you're born and sort of your given name. And I think that's going to change when you can bring so much more information to bear that's immutable and trusted to what your identity is. Like, is it your, you know, whatever history you want to bring, your transaction history, your like rating as a seller on eBay, whatever it is. But then there's just the very real problem of people aren't even in the Web 2 internet. And I think like some of that, I think we're already seeing leapfrogging into mobile adoption. Web 3 and a lot of what we do right now is still desktop first. There's some projects like the whole Everything Cello is another L1 they're focused on is really building out everything mobile first. But a lot of DeFi, a lot of metaverse experiences, NFT, it's all desktop focused at the moment. But again, like it's the first hour of the first inning, like it's still incredibly early. And so I think to really, there's that joke of with DeFi especially, we had the powers of like banking the unbanked and the power of the future of finance like at our fingertips. And we made sort of like food tokens and meme coins and abstractions of Ponzi schemes instead, which is the first manifestation, but the tech is very real. And so to have someone be able to come in without an identity is the way we define it today, without a bank account, and be able to transact in these platforms without the need for even capital to get into in the first place. You can take out, there's a whole new loan structure in crypto. There's really cool ways you can transact and play. So I think that's the future potential. Even back in 2017, 2018 at Consensus, we did a lot of partnerships with sort of the Philippines to get their very unbanked population onto the system. It's still very early days, but I'm hoping we can sort of leapfrog over desktop into mobile and then use this new version of how you do identity, how you do finance, how you transact with each other as a global community in a much more seamless way.
I think that a great question, and I think what you stated is so important. And you'll see in different cultures, Africa's been known as a mobile community, so they access through mobile, and Africa is just booming at the present moment. I mean, the sort of innovation that is happening there, it's very inspiring and just. Yeah, amazing to see and learn. But when you talk about a lot of people not having even internet access, I mean, that's the case here in the UK. There's parts of the UK, people have really bad internet access or just have none. And so you're absolutely right, because it is a barrier. But what we do have here are libraries, for example. And I know that won't be the case in different parts of the world. But I would say there's two things I want to say. And the first thing I want to say is that we still cannot focus on the problems we can't solve, right? Meaning that if we can come into Web 3.3 and build to make sure it's still a diverse and inclusive space, so when those people can catch up, there is a space that is welcoming and representative of them, then that I think is very purposeful and very important. And then the second element is that if you are aware of people who want to come into the space, but they do have bad internet access or no access, then generally speaking, libraries, centralized places will have access to the internet. And I think we can't allow the challenges to stop us from learning and being part of the future. And so that's what I would say. But of course, I know that's not the case for everyone around the world, but for those who do have access to those centralized locations, that is what I would say.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, I think from our perspective, it was so important for us to give as many people the possibility to engage in this movement and having the ability to purchase an NFT. And I think that's why we've put so much effort in accessibility and acceptance within, NFT marketplaces. And, I think the problem is a real one, and it's been there for a long time, but I completely agree. There needs to be a continued, innovation that we're doing, but it can't be forgotten. And we're always thinking about partners and platforms who have, mobile first solutions to get more people being able to, access the experiences, because we want everyone to be able to have equal opportunity in everything that we're getting out of it.
I'm going to be a bad co-panelist and just jump on top really quickly and answer this question again. So actually the use case that really got me into crypto, I first came across Bitcoin in 2013 through a group that I was doing sort of side hustle work on, pro bono work with. And they were teaching young women in Afghanistan just how to use computers, taking them to a centralized location, I think under the guise to their families that they were learning how to sew clothing or whatever. And they would teach them how to be online and create content And this is in 2013, so kind of the early days of like being a content creator, where you could create like word count and blog count, and then you get paid in return. And they could be whoever they wanted to be online. They could be Western, they could be men, they could be whomever, they could be themselves, but in a different kind of environment. And then because these young women can't even cross the street by themselves, not to mention have a bank account in their own name, they were paid in Bitcoin, because you could set up a wallet for them pretty easily, and you couldn't use Bitcoin for anything at the time. There was no ramps to use it, but it gave them that sense of financial freedom. And now you think, if the price of Bitcoin was $22 in 2013, where are those women now? But just that use case of having money that is natively digital, decentralized, not controlled by a central bank, you don't need a bank account to receive funds, was just, the potential was mind-blowing. And then that was sort of one of those use cases that, that doesn't solve internet access, but you can see that play out in a lot of different communities around the world.
Wow.
Work? Yeah, works. Okay, hi. My name is Yvonne Deville, and I've just set up with the Institute of Director Finance and FinTech team with the aim to share the knowledge and educate not only about sort of the blockchain, but the sort of wider FinTech subject. And it's lovely to be here and see the full room with lots of women, but my question is more about diversity, but the age gap. I can see wonderful young people here, definitely a lot of them younger than me. But we have a large population of people, let's call it over 40, 45 plus, who, a lot of them my colleagues, who come to me with the question, why do I even need it? Because let's think of someone who is not interested in trading, doesn't really necessarily want to, I don't know, be part of some kind of community, go to concerts, I don't know. And they're asking me, why? Why do they need it? What would you say to them? How would you sell it to people who are sort of more mature age and, not really interested in trading?
I would say that blockchain is not all about trading. So in my presentation, I don't know if you was here earlier, I was talking about diversity, and diversity from a generational point of view as well. Like, diversity is not just about gender and ethnicity. It's across the board, including generational. And so this is the big thing. There is a lot of women who will leave work because they've had children, and there are a lot of them wanting to, there's a term, job returnees, right? And there's a lot of companies who put together programs for returnees, and there's also recruitment agencies that focuses on returnees, like women who have had children, taken time out maybe to build a business, and they're now wanting to come back into the job market. And a lot of those women are 35 upwards, right? 40, 45 upwards. And so ultimately, I believe it was Camilla, you touched on this. This space is so nascent, it's still so new. We need women, individuals, people, human beings of a certain age and over to come into this space to bring their knowledge, to bring their skill sets. And also, it is really important that these women who are learning from the younger generation, potentially, they realise and appreciate that the world is changing, and blockchain ultimately is the future of business, career, money, and finance. Not necessarily trading, but just the way that you can create social impact using decentralised tools. And I think, for me, I've spoken to a number of women over a certain age. I'm over 40. And what they say to me is that they never thought about blockchain in the way that I present it to them. In a sense of that blockchain is about, there's an ideology around blockchain. It's about equity. It's about getting a share of the pie in a way that we've not had the opportunity to do before. And for a number of women, when they hear that from that perspective, it's really powerful for them, and they want to understand more so that they're not left behind. So that is what I would say to those individuals.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think part of the issue is everything is just overcomplicated, And I think as I think Camilla mentioned, it sort of started with people who may be engineers and having the sort of similar background. They talk a different language. They definitely talk a different language to me. So I think there's that fear of, oh my God, I've got to learn something new. Not only something new, but something so, so complicated. But once you sort of start to sort of peel it back and start to get really great use cases and really great metaphors being used, it makes sense. And you start to really appreciate the utility behind what NFTs can do, behind what blockchain can do. And that's why I think having educational opportunities where it's really sort of broken down, people can ask as many questions as they want, it starts to become, okay, I get that now. It doesn't matter how old I am, I can get involved in this because this is going to impact, multi-generation. If you think about, the opportunity of NFTs being used as tickets for things in the future, it doesn't matter how old you are, you might want to use that NFT to enter that event and get access to your merchandise after. And I think at the moment, everything linked to complicated, MetaMask wallets or whatever is just too scary. And it will simplify. And I think this is what all these wonderful women and lots of us around the world are trying to do, is just make it simple.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that as well. With my time at Skype, when I used to go in and present Skype, no one asked me, Seema, what's VoIP technology about? What is this craziness? But with blockchain, it's almost like we're the Jeff Bezos having to explain e-commerce all the time. I'm hoping that we stop having to explain what blockchain is and its purpose and actually look at the utility, the use case, the why. And I think when you have your why, like if I take it back to Skype, it was, I can speak to my grandchildren. And by the way, I'm 47 as well. And I absolutely believe it needs to start with the why and not with the technology.
Yeah. And crypto's growing up too.
Yeah.
It needs to. Like there needs to be more adults in the room, but it's happening anyways, just with regulation and the players that are coming in. Like institutional adoption, not just of the tokens, but of the technology is coming fast, of like tokenizing real world assets, of these major brands adopting it. And one of the first hires they make is a general counsel or a chief compliance officer or a CFO. And so they need someone with not only who's ideally been credentialized and been to law school, but with experience in brand new and novel and emerging tech, as regulators at the moment are still trying to educate themselves and figure it out from like the Fed to the UK to all globally. How is it done? How is it taxed? How is it managed? That's the world that we're all working in today. And so you're gonna need people of all different backgrounds and ages. And the last point is it's mostly a remote first industry. Yeah. Like some companies have headquarters or they maybe meet up to work at a WeWork a couple times a day, but we all kind of work like in the metaverse. I spend 7 months of the year kind of moving around from different places. My whole company is remote first. We always will be. We will never have a headquarters. That's where most of the companies in this space work, so they can hire talent and people and work with partners and projects kind of seamlessly around the world, because we are building in a digital space, which is great for families and mothers. And you don't really know who you're transacting with on the other side. A lot of the DAOs that I'm actively involved with, I have no idea how old they are or what they look like. I just know that they're sort of like a green frog and their username is like, Crypto52. And that's it. That's their sort of identity. So there's a lot that's there that please send them into
Just
the industry.
one more thing as well, sorry, to add. The highest number of people starting their own business are women. And so if they're starting their own businesses, and they're looking at the market, what should I apply my skills and how do I apply it, what platform, then you're going to want to know about the blockchain ecosystem. Maybe not the technology itself, but the ecosystem. Just like digital marketers, they didn't exist 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Marketers, of course, but digital marketers and PAs and the skill sets that they bring to the table now, having social media marketers, they didn't exist. So that's the same, and this is a reason why that's the answer I would give to your friends.
Yeah. I do think there is a risk of women and also older women being left behind. Like, to be honest, that's something, an ambition for women of Web3 for our community for next year, is thinking about how can we, if at the moment a sort of core demographic is kind of 20s and 30s, like to be sort of going down into schools, teaching teenage girls about, here's an industry you might want to end up working in, so whether you want to be on the sort of coding side or marketing or any number of things, but also speaking to like middle-aged women about sort of, spelling out the sort of philosophies behind this and hopefully use cases. I think you're right that the use cases aren't quite there yet because some of it is just about fun, but actually, if it's a really horrible user experience, and if you're not as technologically fluent, it's not a great experience. It's not fun. So I'm hoping that can catch up quite quickly because otherwise we're going to have a lot of people left behind.
Daniela? Martin.
Oh, sorry, Martin, you were waiting.
Yeah.
Hello. Is purple working? Yeah. Firstly, I'd just like to thank you for the previous lady for the question because she did clearly state that the dividing line between young and old was 45, which safely makes me young. I entirely agree with everything that you posed, but I'd like to. It's more. Yeah, exactly. Maybe share a problem sort of like between. I think you mentioned Ms. McFarland. I thought you were going to be Scottish. You shocked me with your American accent, but there you go. About the chasm of adoption right now. And I used to work in fintech and for a money transfer company called WorldRemit. And the whole premise of WorldRemit was you could send fiat currencies, and instead of paying maybe 20% to Western Union, you would pay a quarter of that, right? So in theory and in practice, it worked out. When we see a lot of the use case, I now work in crypto, so I'm kind of have this lack of, I've been 3 years now in the crypto business, but I still have this worry, and the worry is about this safety and security for the users as we go beyond that chasm that you're referencing. So we talk about the theory of I could send you money if you were my cousin in Ghana or something, I could send it to you, and theoretically that would be seamless and free. And that's the theory of it. But in practice, given the scams that I think you were speaking about, 9 in 10 in some areas, and also the difficulties of adoption, I still worry a little bit that for those users, let's say when we get to that next stage, there's just such a difficulty without any centralised entity. So I thought that might be
I'd love that question. And it's a really important question because it goes to identity, right? There has to be trust, privacy and security built into the products and services we provide. And right now, if you're sending Seema some money through an account that is protected by a username and password and it's been compromised in some way, which lots of accounts are, that's just not going to be good enough for something that's a really quick transaction without those checks and balances in place. There's so much happening on that, and that's a brilliant question from the regulator perspective as well. There's something called the FATF travel rule. If you send me more than $1,500 worth of crypto, there has to be the originator information, the beneficiary data. It needs to be shared immediately, securely and privately, and that's exactly why we've launched Nuggets. I don't want this to become a sales pitch. I've tried to not talk about us, but that's the exact problem that we solve because we absolutely see that payments and identity are going to become synonymous and they're going to have a phenomenal user experience where users are going to go, I want to pay for that, but they're not going to go, oh, I'm going to pay for that on Mastercard or I'm going to pay for that on Visa. I'm going to pay for it as Seema with the best rate that I can have on that day for that particular product, and I want it to be done in a private, secure and frictionless way. So it's a massive problem and it needs to be solved for. And we believe through these types of identity solutions, we can solve it. So yeah, it's an important thing.
I don't think I can answer that better possibly than you have. But it's a big concern. I mean, even when I'm transacting amongst friends, I still triple check their wallet address and make sure it's where I'm sending it. And because there is no sort of, you can't phone your bank and say, I didn't need to do that transaction.
Can I just roll it back?
Can I roll it back? Which brings to a whole other thing of not everyone wants to be their own bank and not everyone wants to transact in a decentralized way. And so, I think we'll also see some sort of CDeFi or centralized DeFi happen as well, where people who want to have all the benefits of being in a sort of fully on-chain Web3 world can. But for people that don't want that responsibility and that onus on identity verification within themselves or using the tools, and they want to outsource that and have it, especially for the businesses we work with that require KYC and KYT. Like Sotheby's is a global auction house. You need to, if you're buying art over a certain value, you need to go through KYC. And they take that very seriously. And so a lot of the identity now is shy of Nuggets being mainstream and really having solved what is known as the identity problem in crypto. Shy of that happening, you sort of have a hybrid Web 2.5, Web 3 world where it's on-chain transactions, but with still a version of like Web 2 identification, where you still need to submit for certain things to even pay in crypto and buy a blockchain asset like an NFT. You still need to submit like a photo of you holding your ID and go through KYC and everything. So it's a bit clunky at the moment as Web 2 and Web 3 come together in Web 2.5. But that's sort of the solution at the moment until we have properly solved on-chain identity.
I think we've got time for one more question. So.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, it's me. So I'm Daniela. Nice to see you here, and thank you so much for this space. I'm a little bit different. I'm non-technical, non-financial, but I do care a lot about well-being. So, but in a positive way, which means I want to highlight the goods so more people learn from them, while being aware of what we can do better still. And when you were talking about, Kerry, of the metaverse and of digital identity, I was more thinking of the children, the young generations, and the messages we're sending them on, like for us was already a challenge to have two types of identities in social media and in real life. And definitely they're placing a lot of emotions on who are they in the metaverse. And I want that place to be a place for flourishing, for belonging, that people can feel like that in real life more than an escape place for young generations to go to because they feel that they can't be who they want to be in real life. So given that, my question is two-sided. So one is, what do you see today from the brands that you're working with in the metaverse that are already doing something about it? Just by raising awareness or by, I don't know, having pop-ups for children that are spending too much time there, or in the marketing side, promoting self-love in real life first kind of thing. And how would you advise parents to start dealing with it now, so when the technology advances and they have more time and more interactions, they're a little bit more prepared to deal with it better?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and I can't talk to being a brand that is actively marketing to children. So we're 18 plus, so we don't sort of go in that space. But you know, I think the reality is that online people do have, you know, identities that they can sort of, you know, hide behind. And equally, on different channels, if we take, you know, social media, we're potentially a different person on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. So we sort of express our identity in different ways. And I see that is going to sort of continue into the metaverse space, and we are going to want to be a certain version of ourselves in different spaces, depending on what experience is that we're sort of engaging with. So I think the one thing that I agree with you is that there needs to be a level of transparency with identity and being able to be confident in what and how you're sort of appearing in the space. You know, I don't see that it will be a place where, you know, we will be able to sort of control 100% sort of transparency. People want to, you know, express themselves in different ways online, and I also think that that should be something that they're able to do as well, so they can, you know, be whoever they want to be. Obviously, in a good, welcoming way. There's always going to be bad actors out there, unfortunately. There's always going to be people that are there for the wrong reasons. I definitely think that there needs to be some controls and efforts to try and minimize those bad actors. And I think it will come. And I know it's, you know, something that is top of mind in many of the platform spaces. And I think it's up to the brands to really sort of consider what platforms they're partnering with and only work with those that they're 100% comfortable that there are, you know, these remits, there's these securities, these safety measures in place for people that are vulnerable, like children.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add there, trust and safety is a massive, massive concern for all the global brands, right? So right now, to your point, there's these experiments that have been taking place with small cohorts of users, or we're launching a small NFT project. And that's because they want to have assurances that when they bring over millions and millions of their users of all different ages, that there will have trusted, safe experiences in the Web3 community. And I think that's why identity is so incredibly key for that, having that private, secure type of experience. I think that's number one. And I think the other piece is, you know, we forget that children already are spending vast amounts of time online. I mean, I look at my kids, right? They're on PlayStation, Oculus, sorry, it's time. But that's the thing. And yesterday, my son got locked out of his Xbox, and I found the whole parental controls. So I think there is safeguards in place, you know, other than just telling children they can only be 2 hours online, but there are those sorts of parental controls, and I can't see any reason why metaverse-type experiences that are decentralised and not like Roblox today or other types of experiences means that those parental controls will need to exist there as well.
I think that's all we've got time for. So I just wanted to remind everybody that it's today that the application's open for the Rising Women in Crypto Power List from WireX. So please, please nominate yourself, nominate your friends, your colleagues. Really, really important. And I also just want to say thank you so much to Level 39, and thank you to WireX, and thank you to our brilliant panellists.
Thank you.
Thank you.